on the energetic level, as an inflammation modulating plant and being in the Rosaceae, it is going to have a cooling energetic. So it's going to be really nice for kind of inflamed, irritable tissues. And, you know, I kind of always see that on the signature of the plant. Like if you look really, really closely at the tips, you know, of the leaves, they kind of have this serrated leaf margin, but the tips of them kind of have this pinkish red coloration to it. They come to a really sharp point, which to me sometimes can be a signature of like heat or aggravation or irritation in the tissues. So we do see that cooling property here. And of course, as an astringent, it will be drying. So it's going to restrain the excessive outflow of fluids, which, and anybody that's ever, you know, if you ever had a really strong cup of green tea or eaten a banana that's a little too green, kind of puckers your cheeks up, dries out the salivary secretions in your mouth. It's because it's drying fluids, and so it will have a drying effect. And then in terms of its influence on tissue tone, it's tonifying, right? It's tonic, it's an astringent, so it increases the tone of the tissue. And so that all translates to an influence on what we, as I was kind of mentioning earlier, it's kind of hard to talk about tannins and astringents without already referring to the relaxed tissue state, right? So that Matthew typically refers to it as the damp relaxation tissue state, primarily because when a tissue is relaxed, there tends to be outflow of fluids, and that can either be fluids leaving the body, excessive urination, excessive sweating, discharge, you know, whether that's like nocturnal emissions or whether that's leukorrhea, things like that. And then the other side of that, though, can be fluids leaking to inappropriate parts of the body, right? So that would be like the varicose vein example is another really great example of the damp relaxation tissue state. You know, that blood is pooling and stagnating and kind of resting in areas where it shouldn't be resting. So the damp relaxation tissue state is useful to kind of juxtapose next to the damp stagnation tissue state, because one is water or fluids flowing into areas they shouldn't flow, and the other is fluids stagnating. And so actually varicose veins is kind of a combination of both. You get relaxed tissues that lead to fluids stagnating. You know, edema could be another really good example of that. That's typically a relaxed state. Sometimes edema can be due to some different causes, but it can be due to a relaxed tissue state, fluids leaking into the extracellular spaces and accumulating and then ultimately stagnating. So then to translate that into kind of how this plant will operate upon the doshas of Ayurveda, this will predominantly be an aggravating plant to the vāta dosha because it is cooling, because it is drying, and because it is tonifying. And vāta is typically already cold and already dry and already hypertonic or tense. We can see it can be useful for treating an excess of pitta because they tend to be hot and damp, but more damp in the form of oils, but this will help to cool down some of the excess heat of pitta. But what we really see predominantly here is this is a plant that's really best used to address the kapha dosha. And this is because kapha is damp and heavy and relaxed. So kapha is going to be more prone to relaxed tissue states, prolapse, kind of weakness within the tissues, and excessive dampness. So ladies' mantle is going to help restrain those fluids from overflowing, drying up excess fluids, and kind of tightening and binding up that relaxed nature of kapha. So yeah, these are some of the main kind of core medicinal properties that I tend to think of in regards to ladies' mantle. It is just a really wonderful plant to have around. I really love its nature.